Welcome to another episode of AWS She Builds Tech Skills. My name is Tamara Gagliardi. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect and the guest for today's show. I'm super excited that we'll be talking about agentic AI and how Bio-Rad, which is revolutionizing their customer support through generative AI. We have a very special guest today that's joining us from Bio-Rad that will be sharing with us the back-end story on how they started working with agentic AI, how they're supporting their customers even better through new technology. So for that, we have Jasmina. Jasmina, welcome to the show. We're very happy to have you. We usually have our guests introduce themselves, telling us a little more about who they are, what you do at Bio-Rad. So Jasmina, welcome.
Thank you, Tamara. Hello, everyone. My name is Jasmina Desai. I'm Associate Director of Software. I oversee software architecture, software development, cybersecurity at the Clinical Diagnostics group here at Bio-Rad. My group consists of developers who are developing full house on AWS. And we have been on AWS platform for the last, I would say, 5 to 6 years. And I'm super excited here presenting one of our success stories with AWS, generative AI, and how we will be transitioning into agentic AI.
Excellent. Thank you, Jasmina. Super excited to be sharing with the audience your story. Before we even get started, I know we mentioned you're joining us from Bio-Rad. Can you share a little more for those that are not familiar with Bio-Rad? Who is Bio-Rad? Who are your customers? What do you do?
Right. So we are, Bio-Rad is a life-size company, and the group I am in is called the Quality Systems Group. And as you see on the slide, this group provides the largest community of QC users, and we support quality control application, quality control data management systems to our customers worldwide. We are the largest community of QC users on these applications. The platform is called Unity Interlaboratory Program, and it's the largest community of QC users across the world. We provide different solutions for QC data management, starting from desktop applications to very comprehensive full stack solutions like desktop solution, including the connectivity solutions that we have. So we have a suite of applications that we support our customers with, depending on their needs. Some are very lightweight applications, some are desktop. And our newest platform, it's called Unity Next, is hosted fully on AWS.
Exciting to hear that. And also we're seeing here the scale at which you operate that you were mentioning,
Right.
which one of the world's largest communities in QC users.
So as you see the numbers, they are pretty impressive, I would say. And we are across 100 plus countries in the world, helping labs with their QC data management solutions.
And with that, we also talked about that you support labs. Maybe let's jump more in terms of the business context. Bio-Rad supports over 29,000 labs across more than 100 countries, like you mentioned. What were the challenges that they were facing that led to leveraging this AI solution? And we'll also be talking about the evolution of that. But starting from the business challenges, what were those?
Right. So talking about the business challenge, one of our biggest challenges, how do we support these many labs across the world, right? We have a big customer support team, and one of the things we thought of is, what if we help customer support team kind of speed up on the time taken to support our customers, because these are not like just questions that are asked to the customer support team. These are truly issues that one sees in the lab while they are running the QC. By the way, QC stands for quality control. and we sell QC consumables to the labs. And while they are running the QC on these medical devices, there are questions that the users have, and which is what the customer support would help them resolve those. So it is not as easy as just answering a question and then the call ends, but it is something very you have to deep dive. It's very comprehensive, and it takes time for each customer, right? So think about these many countries, these many users, and not all of them call at the same time, of course, but sometimes you could get a lot of customer support calls on the same day, which is where it gets very overwhelming. So the challenge here was really, one is, how do we reduce the number of customer support calls? Two is, how do we educate the users to resolve these issues by themselves, right? So that was the challenge. And there are also cases like, when you onboard new customers, they don't know how to use the system, because this is not like a website or just Google where you enter something and browse through the application. These are serious features for quality control, data management, and new users sometimes do need help. Although our application has comprehensive user manuals, even though they are there, sometimes we still get calls, and these are in the form of like documents that the user has to read through and then go to the application and use these features, right? But what if we had a solution where the user could just ask a question and get an instant answer, right? So that's where our AWS partnership and the experts' help came into picture, where we talked to the team, to the AWS team, and we presented this problem statement. And luckily at that time, GenAI services and technologies were new, and AWS had just launched their Bedrock platform. So it was a perfect timing for us to get with the team, and then how do we develop a simple AI assistant, just to start with, like very baby step. How do we develop an AI assistant, and how do we help answer customer or end user questions so that we can reduce the number of customer service calls? So with that, we worked with the GenAI labs. We had a 3-day comprehensive workshop in-house at the Irvine office of AWS. And then we developed the POC. The POC was very successful, very impressive. And eventually we worked with our product management team, and we were able to release it in Q2 of 2024. So that's pretty much how we approached with this simple use case, and how we went through it. So.
And Jasmina, to add maybe a little more context for those that are not familiar with what consumables are, or what instruments, can you give us some examples of those?
Right. So if you go to to the doctor, and the doctor will order your blood work, you go to a lab and you do your blood work, and then you get results after that, right? Now, this blood is tested on medical devices, right? So like things like your diabetes, your lipid panel, your complete blood count, so on and so forth, right? So these are run on medical devices. How do you know these medical devices are producing the right results?
Mm-hmm. That's where QC comes into play.
Yes, that's where quality control comes into play. We sell consumables to clinical labs across the world to do the QC, which is required for compliance. And the QC would tell whether your instruments are in control or not.
Excellent. And like you said, also the importance here is that before, you probably had to read a lot of documents, and it's like very time consuming, probably sometimes even hard to find the answer. So that's why there's a lot of calls that go to the call center.
Yes.
Excellent. And you did mention how did Bio-Rad go about taking the approach, how you worked with the GenAI team. Also, curious on a specific scenario maybe that you can walk us through of how the chatbot works. What is that experience for the end person leveraging the chatbot?
Absolutely, yes. So our first step towards even working on this chatbot was to create the knowledge corpus, right? In order to create the knowledge corpus itself consisted of all the user manuals. But there is a little bit of challenge right there also. These user manuals that we had were for different features, and although they were somewhat standardized, they were not standardized to an extent where GenAI service can easily, I would say, parse it or create embeddings out of those documents. So we work with our customer support team to standardize these documents, standardize the content, the way in which the content was written in the user manuals. Then that's how we created the knowledge corpus, right? So if you look at the architecture, in that we have a two-step process for this chatbot. Step one is offline, which is where we create these embeddings, right? So if you look at this architecture, it's very straightforward. We have a S3 bucket where we have all the PDFs, which is the knowledge corpus or the user manuals, right? As soon as something lands in S3, there is a Lambda function that runs, and an AWS batch will run a batch job to chunk these user manuals, create the embeddings, use the Bedrock model called Titan Embeddings Q1. That's the one we used back then. And then that's how we store the embeddings in a vector store. We use PG Vector for that. You have all the embeddings stored, and we support multimodal architecture here, which means that our user manuals not only contain text, but they also contain images, right? So we store the text embeddings in the PG Vector database, and we store the corresponding images in the S3 bucket, as you see on the bottom left. So you have a combination, and the way you kind of refer to the images is through the metadata, which is stored in a separate table in the same database. So that's how we create the vector database. And now you have all the embeddings for all the user manuals that are there, and the chatbot is ready to answer the questions.
So this is also I was going to add, given that you're leveraging this architecture, it's a flexible architecture, which if you need to continue to add new manuals, is as simple as like dropping it in your storage S3, and then the embeddings will take place.
That is correct. It's fully automated. As soon as something lands in S3, the whole pipeline kicks off and the whole workflow kicks off, and you have your embeddings right away.
Excellent. Thank you for walking us through the different pieces of the architecture. Another piece that you mentioned earlier is that you are a global you have global operations. You mentioned over 100 different countries. Those countries speak in different languages. Yes. So I'm curious as to how were you able to address the multiple language? What did Bio-Rad do to address that piece?
Yeah, so if you look at the second image here, how do we answer the questions in different languages? So as you see, the user could ask the question. The user could be asking in French, could be asking in Japanese, could be asking in English. No matter what language comes in as a question, we have a function that will actually convert all the text to English using AWS Translate. So the question first gets converted to English. The next step is we have a very comprehensive RAG developed for this particular solution. And I will explain why. If we were to not have the RAG, of course, we would see hallucinations, a lot of hallucinations, which is not good to have in a customer-facing application. That is one. Second is we wanted a solution where not every question goes to the model every time. Otherwise, it's going to introduce latency, and we cannot keep the users waiting on the screen, waiting for the answer to come. Of course, just like any bot, a couple of seconds is okay, but a couple of seconds every time would kind of slow down the speed at which the users are asking the same questions, but in different flavors, right? So what we did is we created a smart RAG, and it's a combination of RAG and how we store the data in the database, right? So we not only have conversation history stored in the database, but we also have pre-canned questions, which are provided to us by our product management team. The benefit of pre-canned question is we know that every user that is onboarded almost always has a fixed set of questions. So those would go as the pre-canned question. For example, if you are on a bank website, say, for example, you could be asking the most common questions related to your checking or savings account. And similarly here on this chatbot, as a user is onboarded, the user could have very common questions like, how do I upload a file? How do I generate a report? And in that case, how do I upload a file, or can I upload a file, or tell me how to upload a file? These are all questions of different flavors, but the answer is the same. So with that, we created the database of pre-canned questions, and then we also have the conversation history that would actually hydrate the context with the different flavors of the same question asked by different users, but where the answer is the same, right? So if a question comes in, the first thing that the system would do is really go to the database, check, is it closer to any of the question in the pre-canned list? If yes, then it will return the answer right away and would not go to the model, right? And if it is not,
that's as well, just to add there, it's another way of also lowering the cost, right? Because like you have there the answer, it's a two-win, both for the end user that they get an answer pretty quickly, but also for Bio-Rad in terms of that cost management.
That is correct. And I was just about to say that. So thanks. Yes. So one of the reasons why we had to do that is because one is latency and another is cost, right? So if you go to the model every time, it's going to cost. So this was a very efficient way of managing that latency and the cost by having a list of pre-canned questions and having the conversation history stored. So as we deployed this chatbot, the conversation history initially was very small, obviously, but as over a period of time, it kind of built. And then now we have a big set of conversation history, and it even further lowers down the amount of times it goes to the bedrock model, right? So that really worked well, and we got to know it's called hydrating the context. So you add the prompt and you give the context, and then you send it to the model, you will get a better answer, or you will get a close to accurate answer. So that's how. So now we got to the model, or either we got the answer from the conversation history. It goes back, and that function that you see, the Lambda function, it got a response back. It will go back to AWS Translate again, and depending on the language in which the question was answered, it will reconvert the English answer into that language and then return back to the user. The user would see full text as well as images. As you see, the S3 bucket has the images, which we discussed in the previous slide, where we are storing the images also related to the content. So the user would see the text and the relevant image in that text. And this really works beautifully. I would not say that it is 100% accurate, because no model is 100% accurate, but it is so good. I mean, it really does its job, right? So you will see, and you can literally click on the image, it will enlarge the image, you could see the whole thing. The multimodal architecture really works well in this case.
Thank you, Jasmina. And as you mentioned, you can continue to expand it to other languages as they come up. For those that aren't familiar with Amazon Translate, it allows you, as Jasmina was mentioning, to translate those texts and documents. It supports 75 plus languages, and it continues to add. And it also has, like, one of the other features that I've seen customers leverage is that it has a domain-specific translation. And I know for healthcare, that's sometimes something that is needed as well. I know we walked so far through what was the business driver, trying to provide a better customer experience, lowering that time, as well to provide the answers to those people in the labs trying to troubleshoot into the QC. And then we jumped through the architecture. We talked about the translation piece, looking at that broader future picture ahead for Bio-Rad. What was the next step in terms of the implementation?
Right. So the next step in the implementation is quite interesting, right? So once we saw this flavor of AI assistant in the application, we kind of saw so many use cases in the application that can be converted into either a bot or something that is enabled by AI. You cannot have multiple bots in the same application. That was the problem statement. And there came the concept of agents, right? So what if I had the same bot but have multiple agents behind it? And depending on the context and the type of question, it would route to the appropriate agent, which is actually based off of that particular, I would say, knowledge corpus. Then it solves the problem, which means that we already have the AI assistant in the Unity Next application. Now we will be using it not only for answering those questions from the user manuals, but we could use the same bot and create another agent behind it to do something else. Say, for example, I want a voice enabled report generator. Today, we have to generate the reports. It's a very common use case in a clinical lab where they generate the QC reports, right? So if I were to tell the bot, generate the report for so and so month, then there is an agent sitting there understanding the context. It's not going to route it to this AI assistant, which is answering the user manuals, but it will route it to the appropriate agent, which is meant for reports. As I always give an analogy, right? Like in AWS Q, which we heavily use within our organization, there are these /test, /doc, and /review agents. So it's within the same chat, you can use these multiple agents. Similarly, within the same AI assistant, we can use multiple agents behind the scenes. So there comes this particular transitioning to agentic AI approach. We actually just finished a workshop with the agentic AI experts through the Agent Path program at AWS. And we did a little POC, and this architecture is from that POC, which we are looking into really really make it happen eventually in Unity Next as well. But it turned out to be successful because we already had one bot which was working off of a knowledge corpus of user manuals. We had to convert that to an agent. We had to create another agent that is pointing to something else, say report generator agent. And as you see the architecture, the frontline architecture remains the same because we have our SPA application, you have the assets in the S3 bucket. But now, instead of the conversation history and the pre-canned question and so on and so forth that we are making use of agentic AI and the AgentCore platform, which made it easier for us. We are able to use the concept of long-term memory and short-term memory equivalent to the conversation history that we actually developed in-house. And using that, now the system would decide whether it needs to pick something from the memory or it really needs to go back to the model. So it's the same concept, but a different architecture and a more powerful architecture, because with GenAI, that bot is just waiting for you to give the instruction for it to help you. Here it is more autonomous, right? So it definitely comes with its own benefits. And we saw that when we created the eval set, which is a set you create in order to test the accuracy of these agents. When we created the eval sets during that workshop, we didn't see anything going wrong with the agents, because when we asked one type of question, it did go to the right corpus. We asked another type of question, it did go to the other knowledge corpus. So these agents worked really well, and we are looking forward to really making it happen in Unity Next, where with the help of agentic AI and all the core services offered by AWS, we can even do more for our customers.
Jasmina, I gotta say, it's amazing to see the evolution of how you continue to add the latest technology to the architecture and the modernization path that you took for this. Like you mentioned, having agents that specifically work on one type. In this case, you were given the example of the reports, but also adding that element of the memory as well. Yeah. So congratulations. I think it's an amazing evolution, and happy to hear that it's also helping the end users get the answers that they need. With that, we also usually ask, given that you went through so many paths, so many evolutions, there's probably lessons learned that other organizations can learn from Bio-Rad. If you can share some of those or suggestions, or like from your experience, how can others learn?
From my experience, I would say that if an organization is really looking towards modernization and are looking towards using pre-tested models that can help you or accelerate your vision towards AI, and if you are on AWS platform, I would say use the expertise from the AWS teams, and that's really going to accelerate your path to AI enabled applications. In our case, our teams started from nothing to now being really, I wouldn't say experts, but they really know what they are doing as far as using agentic AI or GenAI services on AWS is concerned. And this was all because we had full support from the AWS experts, from the AWS team we are working with, and I'm really grateful for that, to be honest, because starting from teaching us how to use Amazon Q developer the right way, to explaining us how each of these services would help, to reviewing the architecture that we had proposed and telling us the best practices, it really helped us speed up. Otherwise, if we had to do by ourselves, learn, discover, fail, and then succeed, yes, that is possible too, but it's a long path. If you really want to go faster, then I would say getting help from AWS experts would be my advice. They really provided the strategic guidance to us, and the technical depth they have was really helpful for us.
Excellent. Thank you, Jasmina, for highlighting the different resources also that you worked with within AWS, the programs that you implemented. Yeah. We're almost to the end of our show today. I think we covered a lot of amazing topics. We usually like to ask our guests as well if they can share either resources, career advancement tips, anything that might motivate the audience to continue learning in their path, or what helped you, I guess, continue learning on your path, Jasmina.
I would say I'm a risk taker. I take calculated risk. Sometimes when people hear AI, they either get scared or they get excited, or sometimes too excited. I would say if you are excited about new technology and if you are excited about AI ML, take baby steps. Start small and then scale, as we do on AWS as well, right? So it's a matter of, I would say it's a matter of choice. You are or you are not using AI, right? So if you want to use AI, then I would say take baby steps, use safer services like how AWS offers, right? So we are in a healthcare industry, right? And the healthcare industry or even the financial industry would be extremely careful using AI, right? Given the fact that we hear so much on what AI can do, and if anyone abuses AI, what could happen, so on and so forth. So there are scary stories like that. But then if you safely use AI, I would say safe AI with the guarantee that AWS platform provides, and the cybersecurity that has been taken care of with AWS services. I think you can start small, and you can you can see how it is helpful to your organization. For example, we started with as small as how do we increase the productivity of our developers. So we started using Q developer, right? We saw it took time. Yes, of course, it didn't happen overnight. It took time, but then yes, people now, I say they are now addicted to Q developer. They really like it, and they are reusing it right, again with the help of the expert advice and the workshops that we did with AWS, right? So that is one. Now, once we do that, okay, now we know how to use these tools. Then we started developing small internal applications on how we can speed things up, how we can save time. Even if we can save 10%, 20% of the time, it's worth it, right? Then you bring it to your customer facing applications and how you can apply AI for your end users as well. This is what we did. And like I said, I do take risk, but calculated risk, of course, but it was worth it, I would say. And we are super excited to use AgentCore now in our journey on AI, and also Kiro. I'm super excited about using Kiro as well, coming out from AWS reInvent last week. Kiro is very exciting as well. So
I love that you said you're a risk taker and you shared so many different tools and services that the audience can start exploring in their GenAI journey. Jasmina, it's been amazing having you on the show. I loved hearing the story, the evolution. You shared a lot of also insight on how people can continue to explore different services. And with that, you've been an amazing partner. So thank you so much, Jasmina, for being on the AWS She Builds Tech Skills show. And we can't wait to hear how you can continue to evolve the architecture and the solution. With that, thank you also to the audience. I don't know, Jasmina, if you have any final closing notes, but we have made it.
Thank you so much for having me and hearing our story. So thank you very much.
Yes, of course. And thank you to the audience. We'll see you on the next AWS She Builds Tech Skills show. Until next time.